From the studios of Ave Maria Radio in Ann Arbor, this is Veterans Radio. And now, here's your host, Dale Throneberry.
And good morning, America. How are you on this beautiful Saturday morning? My name is Dale Throneberry, and I'll be your host this morning on Veterans Radio. And we're going to be talking about waiting spouses. Now, what in the world can a waiting spouse be? Well, these are the folks, the men and women who are left behind when their husbands and wives go overseas. And so we're going to find out some of the issues and difficulties that they go through while their families are deployed. Joining me in the studio a little bit later on will be Ken Cook. His wife, Christine, has been on our program a few times. She's a colonel in the Michigan National Guard, Army National Guard. She is now a full bird colonel. And congratulations, Christine, to you. And we're going to be talking with Ken about his experiences of being home for almost 15 months with two children, 5 and 9. And also joining us on the phone in a little bit will be Meghan Schultz. And Meghan's husband is in the Navy and has been deployed also. We were supposed to have Megan Haney in our studio today. She is our intern who's been with us for the last 3 or 4 months, but unfortunately she had a family emergency and will not be able to be here. And Megan, our prayers are with you and hoping that your family member will recover fully. But thanks for all the effort that you put into this program. And joining me in the control room today is Ken Rogie.
Good morning, Dale.
It's kind of an unusual day. I was drafted again. I was only...
Well, I was drafted a couple weeks ago for you, so it's right. About as fair play.
That's true, and that's one of the things that we do around this place is we support each other.
You got to be flexible
all the time. Yes, we do. It's amazing what's going on. So anyway, we're going to be talking about waiting spouses, and let me give you the phone number for some of you out there that maybe be going through this right now or have gone through this situation in the past. The number to call us here at this program is 877-573-7825. That's 877-573-7825. And Ken, we've got some news out there, don't we?
Yeah, I got a couple of news items here. First of all, the Department of Veterans Affairs National Suicide Prevention Hotline for Veterans has begun operations. The toll-free hotline number is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. The VA's hotline will be staffed by mental health professionals who will take toll-free calls from across the country and work closely with local VA mental health providers in helping callers. To operate the national hotline, VA is partnering with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration of the Department of Health and Human Services. And I think it's long overdue.
I think so, too. It sounds like they, wasn't it a couple of weeks ago they were talking about adding more staff to the VA, and this was one of the areas that they really were concerned about. And reading the news, I was in the Army Times over the weekend that they were talking about the numbers of people coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, and so forth that are suffering from depression is unusually high, and that these are services that are going to be necessary. And I'm glad to see them making those efforts.
Well, they also have noticed a great increase in the number of PTSD people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. So.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, if you're there for 15 months now, and it's a similar situation, you don't know who the good guys are versus the bad guys, and that's a lot of stress.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. And here's an item that I didn't know. For years I've been doing this, but I was illegal. I didn't know that. Legislation sponsored by U.S. Senator John Inhofe clarifies the U.S. law to allow servicemen and women and veterans not in uniform to salute the flag. Current law states that veterans and servicemen not in uniform should place their hand over their heart without clarifying whether they can or should salute the flag. The bill passed in the Senate recently by unanimous consent. Now, I didn't know that.
I didn't know it was a law.
I didn't know that they couldn't do that. I've been saluting for years.
Salute, like on the forehead salute?
Yes. Yeah, like military salute.
Oh, well, I thought we were... didn't we get something from one of the organizations that was encouraging veterans to salute now? Maybe they've decided that that's what they want to do. I don't know. I feel I feel like when I salute, I should have a hat on, or an official hat, instead of a tiger hat on backwards or something along those lines. It's kind of a...
Well, you should uncover. You should uncover if you're not wearing a military hat. But I've been going to ball games and stuff like that, and I've been saluting during the national anthem, and thought nothing of it. I was proud of that. And, as part of my military background, I said, "Hey, I'm going to salute it."
Well,
now I can do it legally.
That's nice to know.
Yeah.
I can imagine if the salute police were out.
Could get in trouble.
That's true.
The U.S. House of Representatives recently passed Veterans Health Care Improvement Act of 2007. The bill would provide financial assistance for low-income veterans residing in permanent housing and support services as they transition from homeless to housing. The bill also addresses the needs of veterans living in rural areas by providing program grants for transportation to VA medical facilities. The hospice care bill also passed the House. It would prohibit the collection of co-payments for all hospice care furnished by the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Well, it's nice that they're finally really actually doing something. I'm hoping that after it passes, it gets signed.
Yeah, and I hope it continues. There's a lot of need out there in different areas, and it is time that it's been addressed.
Yeah, there was another article in military.com this morning about some returning veterans having difficulty making their rent payments, and that there are emergency programs being put in place to help these guys out.
Oh, there's also some action in Congress, too, about these employers who don't give the jobs back to the returning vets. And I always thought it was illegal for them to do that. But evidently it's not. It's encouraged, but it's not required. So,
right.
But it's interesting if you go on Snopes.com, SNOPES.com, and look, there's list in there. You have to put the right keywords in. But you can see a list of all the employers across the nation who guarantee the jobs for their employees. And in many cases, like Sears, makes up the difference between military pay and their regular Sears pay. And all their rights and benefits continue while they're on active duty, up to 2.5 years.
That's a good deal.
Oh, that's great.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, Sears is good to their military people. And one final thing here, the Department of Defense and Department of Veterans Affairs have successfully tested and deployed an interface for the bidirectional health information exchange, that's a mouthful, which is the mechanism that allows two departments to share electronic health information on patients treated by both departments. The improved interface allows providers at all military treatment facilities to access BHIE, as it's called, directly from AHLTA, the military's electronic health record, eliminating the requirement for login to a separate system to view data from the VA. This new interface also allows VA providers to access information from all DoD healthcare facilities.
I think that would probably help with the disability and pension figures that they're having difficulty with in getting their proper benefits because they haven't been talking to each other in the past.
Well, yeah, there's another bill that's pending, taking the DoD out of the business of determining disability, and putting it solely into the hands of the VA. As it is now, the military service can rate you as say 20%, but you go to the VA and the VA will say it's only 10%, or vice versa. And so there's some disconnect between the services and the VA, and Congress is saying, well, let's streamline this thing, make one agency responsible for it all.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Oh, it does.
Streamline it. Think of that.
Surprisingly, a good idea out of Congress.
We'll see what's going on.
We got one last thing here before you get to the welcome home. We want to welcome our listeners from Raytheon, C Corp, Newick, and the Naval War College that were tuned in a while back, and we want to say welcome to them, and they're going to continue to be tuning in. So we're glad to have them aboard. I
also want to thank everybody out there who's forwarding on our flyers that we send out. It's really great that we're starting to get back. They're not bouncing back, but we're getting sent back to us because we're on all these other email lists also. And I'm starting to get this flyer and going, oh, that's right, we have a show this Saturday. Yes, we have to do that. I want to thank everybody for their help. Well, I'm going to go right into the welcome home right now. Welcome home. Each week on Veterans Radio, we welcome home servicemen and women who have been stationed around the world in the service of our country. And the two welcome home issues that we have today are right here in Michigan. Number one, following their 12-month tour of duty in Iraq, 281 soldiers from the 1461st Transportation Company of the Michigan Army National Guard in Jackson, Michigan, returned home yesterday to a parade through town and a homecoming ceremony at the Jackson County Fairgrounds. The soldiers originally left and went through Fort Dix, New Jersey, and for their training, and we're really happy to have them home. Today, more than 1,700 Michigan National Guard soldiers and airmen are deployed across the globe in Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan, Kosovo, Arizona, New Mexico, Texaco borders. And we're really happy to have the people home from Jackson. In addition, the Big Rapids-based Michigan Army National Guard unit has returned home from Iraq. 148 soldiers from the Company E 125th Infantry of Michigan Army National Guard had returned to Big Rapids again yesterday, Friday, to a parade and a ceremony at the Ferris State University Wink Arena. And again, we want to make sure that everybody welcomes these people that are coming back from overseas and let them know that we really do care about them, and we're very happy to have them home. And we're back here on Veterans Radio, coming to you from the studios of Ave Maria Radio in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and around the world at veteransradio.net. Hopefully you are all listening in out there, and we want to talk to you today about waiting spouses. And if you're a waiting spouse or you've been a waiting spouse, we want you to give us a call also at 877-573-7825. And joining me in the studio right now is a waiting spouse, no longer waiting, thankfully, is Ken Cook. And Ken Cook's wife is Colonel Christine Cook now in the Michigan Army National Guard, who spent most of the year of 2004 in Kuwait and various and other sundry places of the joyous Mideast. And Ken, we want to welcome you to Veterans Radio.
Thank you for having me.
And also joining me on the line is Meghan Schultz. And Meghan, I understand that your husband is in the Navy and has recently been deployed.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I want to welcome you to Veterans Radio.
Thank you.
Well, let me start with you, Meghan. Where is your husband right now? Or I know you can't tell us.
Well, he's sitting right next to me, actually.
Oh, hey, that's a great deal.
Yeah, he's home right now. He was on a deployment he got back, about a year ago. That was a 6-month deployment over mostly in the Middle East, and then he's getting deployed again before the end of this year, and that'll be for 7 months.
Oh, okay. Well, so we can get a history and a projection from
Yeah.
you. That would be great. Well, Ken, tell us a little bit about your experience, because you were at home with 2 children.
Yes, I was. We have 2 children. At the time my wife deployed, my son was in kindergarten and my daughter was in 4th grade. The kindergarten was a half-day kindergarten. That ended up being a logistical nightmare, but I was very fortunate that I had a lot of support from my work. Mm-hmm. My company was very supportive of the Guard and my wife's career, and my wife being deployed. And I had several. I had been working there for quite a while. I do IT work for a manufacturing company in Flat Rock, Michigan, and I had one vice president who told me that I have to go and take care of the kids first before I go and take care of the other things. So it's unusual. You're talking about employer support of the Guard and Reserve, and it's unusual to have that much support and that much freedom. I was able to essentially change my hours to suit things, and that was a tremendous relief. It's given the requirements of trying to take care of the 2 kids and schedule everything that they need scheduled and get them where they need to be, arranging aftercare for school because school doesn't cover an actual work day. And trying to be a single working parent is a large challenge.
Ken, what is the name of the company?
The company is called Flat Rock Metal, and they were very supportive.
Well, we want to applaud them for their efforts. That's great.
Yes, I'm still very grateful for what they did and the support that they showed us, and it was an interesting development. We sort of knew in October of 2003 that she might be deployed, and then she actually left in October for the mobilization, a conference, and then went to the mobilization station in November in Wisconsin. And she was trained. They were trained for several months there, and then went over. She was stationed in Kuwait, but her troops were sent out all over Kuwait, Qatar. I don't think she had any in Afghanistan, but into Iraq also. And she traveled around every week. She would make sure that she could get to see most of her troops. Mm-hmm. She put on an enormous number of miles. For me, the main thing was taking care of the kids, making sure that their life went as smoothly as it could, given that Mom wasn't around. So we had to adjust schedules and adjust things, and there were a lot of times when it's like, well, yes, I know Mom did it that way. we're going to do it this way now, and things like bedtime rituals and how things run in the morning.
I can only imagine what that would have been like.
And really, until the kids went to sleep, I couldn't actually have any time for myself. But after they got them into bed, then I could sort of unwind. One thing that I had to go through was I realized about 3 months in that I was waiting for someone to give me a break. That Christine and I have been married for 17 years, and raising the kids, I'd always been doing the 2 weeks annual training and the various projects that came up that she had to take care of with the Guard. And so I was used to taking care of the kids on my own every so often for shorter blocks of time. But it occurred to me partway through that, I've got all this stress building up and this pressure building up. And I was waiting for my wife to walk in the door and I could say, here, you take care of the kids right now. I've had enough for the time being, and I need a little bit of a break. And it occurred to me that I had to be able to accept the fact that this could go on forever. That the stress was so high, and I was waiting for that it's like, oh yeah, it's possible, not likely, but possible that she wouldn't come back. That I could be doing this forever, and I could be a single parent indefinitely. And I had said that being a dad was the most important job that I would ever have, and unfortunately I had to prove it.
Right. But Meghan, when your husband was deployed, do you have any children?
We don't have any children, no.
What did you do while he was gone?
I was actually in college at the time, so I didn't have to worry about any kids, thankfully, because I can't imagine what that would be like. But I did have college, and I had 2 jobs, and I was still living at home and near all my family and friends and everything, so that was a little bit better to get through because I was so busy. It was hard not having him around, and the hardest part is actually not being able to talk.
Right.
It's very expensive for him to call. I think it was 50 cents a minute. So we did have email, but the hardest part was not having him around and then not being able to actually talk to him and tell him what's going on. Some exciting things happen over the course of 6 to 8 months, and you always go to that one person to talk to, and they're not there.
Sure. And
you have to find somewhere else or some other way to deal with that.
How was it for you to be at home again after being married?
Well, see, we weren't actually married when he was deployed the first time. We were engaged. So I hadn't actually left home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're high school sweethearts. So
all right. I can relate to it. My wife and I were high school sweethearts when I went to Vietnam, and she was going to school and doing the similar things that you did. I mean, we got married, but then she went home for part of my tour, and that was different. She said, all the dynamics, all the relationships had changed as a result of that.
Right. Well, we Alex, my husband, went to boot camp about 3 weeks after he graduated from high school, and so I was kind of used to not seeing him for the 2 years before he got deployed. We saw each other maybe a total of 3 weeks a year, just because it's expensive to travel and plane tickets and all that. But then he actually got deployed my second year of college, and so, it was rough, but I was so busy that luckily it kept my mind on other things, because the worst thing is to have time to sit and think.
Sure. Oh.
You don't want to have time to do that because that's going to get sad.
Right. Yeah. For our listeners out there, we're talking with waiting spouses. We want to find out if you have any information that you'd like to pass along to us. The number here at Veterans Radio is 877-573-7825. Ken, coming back to you, did they give you any preparation? Did the Guard or anything have a seminar on what you can do?
Yes, there were several programs. I was involved with the family readiness group. It used to be called the family support group for the various units. So I actually knew quite a few of the soldiers in her unit, and various officers in the Guard. I actually had friends that I could call if I had to. And while she was deployed, I acted as one of the co-leaders. There were 4 of us that were leading the family support group or family readiness group. And there were issues that came up with spouses needing different things, pay issues. A spouse is sitting at home waiting for pay to come in, and there are questions like, why didn't it come through? Where did it? And so I would act as a liaison between the people who are here, left home, and the people who are overseas. Fortunately, I had email contact. I can't imagine what your wife went through, where you just don't know. There's during 1 month, I think I sent there's something like 600 emails. And I was the slouch. Christine actually sent about 800 emails.
Well, she wrote a book with her emails.
Well, she did, but even then, I was able to be in contact with her essentially all the time through email. Now, I found that the telephone calls were extremely unsatisfying, extremely... there's no privacy. When she was living in a tent for a year in Kuwait, in the middle of Kuwait, and she was in the middle of two other officers. So when she was on the telephone, there was no privacy. She couldn't say anything. And there was a generator running just outside of her tent, so she couldn't actually hear us. And so that communications is. I think with the advent of email and somebody who's willing to write, that that can actually help with the communications flow.
Ken, when Dale and I were over in Southeast Asia, we had telephone communication.
Mars lines.
It was called Mars. Now, Mars is a military radio system, unofficial military.
Right, it's through amateur radio.
Right.
Yes, I know that.
And what you had to do is you would say, "Hi, hon, how are you?" Over.
And it would be repeated from station to station. And so you didn't know how many amateur radio operators are repeating your messages.
People are listening, and we never knew what time. I never could figure out what time it was here. And we would be in, I know there was only, where I was, there was only one Mars station, I guess it was in Saigon, and you had to get in line and wait for all these guys to go through, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And but, then you go back, you look at the people in the Revolutionary War and in Civil War, how long did it take for letters to get back and forth, and how did they ever find people?
We had to wait a long time for letters, too.
Well, it was 10 days back and forth.
10 days.
Yeah.
Well, Christine's father was deployed in Vietnam, and they had the same thing, where her mother and her brother were in Hawaii at the time, and they were living, well, I don't know. So they were on, I can't remember if they were on base or off base. But they had some issues with trying to deal with the local issues. They didn't feel any support for the officers being the soldiers being overseas, and so there was a tremendous. And so there's a definitely a different feel now. There's a lot more support. I really don't know how my mother-in-law went through it, and but she was a military wife, and she did it. One of the greatest compliments that I got was that she said I was doing a good job. In the middle of all this, and keeping everything together and multitasking with all the kids, and trying to keep family holidays going. And we went out and visited. Her mother is in Pennsylvania, so I planned trips with myself and the kids out there to visit her. She came in and helped me. My parents are in the Detroit area, so they would come by every so often. And
But when I was over in Southeast Asia, my wife was on base at Selfridge living, and they had no support except from the chaplain's office. That was the only place she could turn for any assistance. Nowadays, they have family support facilities and centers, and
there are a number of places, and I want to go back to Megan, and I'm assuming that the Navy has a family support group, much like the Army did.
Yeah, we're given the information on all of that before our sailors actually deploy, and then they're very active while the sailors are gone. There's things online that we can do with the support group. The ombudsman posts pictures on a secure website, but the families can access that, and then we also they have meetings all the time, I think maybe even once a week, and special events and stuff like that. So they're definitely supportive. And this area in general, down here in Virginia, there is so much military. I mean, every branch has a base out here that it's kind of like you can talk to your next door neighbor and they know what you're going through, because so many people down here are military, so that's helpful.
Right, and I think that's probably what's most important, is that you're talking with people that are going through a similar situation or who have been through it recently themselves, and so all probably helps alleviate some of that apprehension.
Yeah.
that you probably have, because most people don't understand. It's like I said, when my wife went home, it was like she went home, and it was just that I was out of town for a while, and she just, living your, what are you upset about? Well, oh, the mail didn't come today. Well, don't worry.
Big deal, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, people can't understand, because I didn't understand until I went through it, but it's also kind of the fear of the unknown when there is email, thankfully, but sometimes they have to shut it down if the guys are doing something that they can't talk about. They'll just shut off all communication, and it's not like they give warning for that. And so then you start wondering, well, why haven't I heard from him in a week?
Megan, your husband's getting ready to deploy again. How are you preparing for that departure?
Honestly, I'm not thinking about it right now. I guess because I've been through it once before, excuse me, I sort of know what to expect, but I work full-time, and that helps. I'm busy all day, but I really don't spend a lot of my time thinking about his deployment. I don't know if that sounds bad, but I'm enjoying him being home right now, and we're doing things together and just living like normal right now. But I think it's easier too because I don't have kids, so I don't have to prepare them and talk about it with them and everything. But honestly, I don't put a whole lot of thought into it at this point. I'm thinking about holidays, just travel plans, because I don't want to be here by myself. I'm going to fly home and spend time with my family, stuff like that. But it's going to be difficult, I think, 7 months alone.
Well, I think it is, because the issue I know that my wife had, or that she was concerned about, is that she never knew where I was. I always knew where I was.
Yep.
So, and if I would send a letter home, it would take 10 days, for him to cross in the mail. And so I would say, and I'd have to couch some of my mail with, secret messages in there of what I was doing, because I wasn't allowed to say what I was doing.
Right. They can't say where they are. They can't say what they're doing. You just have to be grateful that they can be in contact at all.
That's true.
And just even if they say hello and then have to sign off, that's fine. As long as you know they're okay and they are in contact, that's really all I want.
That's what we're looking for. And we're going to take a break right now. We're coming up on the bottom of the hour. You're listening to Veterans Radio, and we're talking with waiting spouses. We'll be right back after this. And we're back on Veterans Radio, and we're talking about waiting spouses. Excuse me. Here today, and if you have a comment or a question you'd like to ask our guests, give us a call at 877-573-7825. Megan, this time he's going away. What have you done to prepare for this? I mean, I know we're talking about denial, but we can't do that. Have you done anything as far as legal paperwork or anything that the Navy suggests?
Well, we're getting in line things like you have to take care of power of attorney papers. You got to write up the wills. I know it sounds a little bit morbid, but it's just something you have to deal with, just so that everything's in order in case something did happen. And then my husband's getting me the information on who the ombudsman is for his ship, and then also the family support groups are starting up, so I'm getting information on that. Just things like that. Information on where they might be going, certain ports that they could be visiting, just kind of preparing mentally like that, and getting all the information I can before he actually leaves.
Megan, what is the ombudsman, and what is his role?
The ombudsman is actually, I think, usually a wife who's back home, and she is in contact with the ship. She knows information. Like, let's say they did lose communication for a week or however long. The ombudsman would tell the other wives and the people in the support group that they are out of communication. She would also be the one to contact if let's say something came up and we had to get a hold of our sailor. She might be able to do that. She gets pictures from the ship that she can put on the website. She's kind of just the go-between between all the people back home and the ship.
Does the Navy actively support this individual? Do they provide them office spaces or whatever?
That I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
But they get the ear of the commanding officer?
They get the what?
The ear of the commanding officer. They get to talk to him?
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't know if they get to talk to him directly, but I know that they are in contact with some of the higher-ups that they know what's going on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, how did the guard handle that?
Well, actually, I was one of the point of contacts. And since I had direct communications with both the state headquarters and the unit, my wife, then I could act as a liaison. My wife had more contact. She was, as commanding officer of a battalion, she had email contact almost all the time. The Army has moved to email being their conduit for disseminating orders and meeting notices and interaction. So I almost always had had the ability to contact her via email. It may take 12 hours before I get a response. Right. And there were a few times when email was down and you'd have a panic attack. That was only twice where I really didn't know what was going on for 3 days. And those were the time. And so that's why I can't even imagine like a 7-day turnaround or a 14-day turnaround on a letter was just astounding to me. But you'd have a different frame of mind. But in terms of access to command structure, since I had been exposed to the military, to the Army, I sort of knew who to call. And there is actually a family readiness office in the Michigan National Guard that handles both the air side and the Army side, and you can contact them. I had free contact to them, and I could call them out saying, I need this type of issue resolved, or do we know anyone who can handle and help a family in need? And we didn't have to do that often. I'm very glad that where Meghan is, there's a lot of active support. That's great. Here in Ann Arbor, there's essentially we were the only deployed family that I knew of in all of Ann Arbor. And my children had no peers.
Right.
Except when we would gather, and her unit was based in Lansing, and we would gather, and then you'd have the kids together, and then they would have kids who understood, oh, your dad's gone or your mom's gone, and excuse me. But preparing the children for that.
That's what I was going to say. Speaking of the children, how did you prepare them for her leaving?
Well, there really wasn't much that we could do other than say this is mom's job, and she's going over and she's serving her country, and this is something we have to do. It's not what she'd like to do. She'd like to be able to do her job and be able to see you guys at the same time, but her job required her to travel overseas. And it went okay. My daughter eventually didn't want to even talk to my wife over the telephone. My son would, but being 5 and 6, it was easy for him to just talk about what he did at school that day, whereas my daughter was a little more emotional about it, and she really wanted to have mom back. One advantage was that I was able to there were several other women officers that I was able to, and good women role models that I was able to find and try to have my daughter spend some time with them. And it's basically just reassuring them that I'm still there, that the family's still there, mom's still here, and she can't be here, but she's still part of the family. She wants to be involved. I would send her every 2 weeks. I'd send her a package. I'd send her photographs. I'd print off photographs of what the kids did in school. I'd try to share with her what was going on, keep her informed of how the kids were growing and developing and what was happening with them, and use that feedback for my children. Let them know, Mom got pictures of your school project, your art project, and she thought it was really nice and really cool. And here's the email. She would write an email back, and I would print it off and give it to the children and let them read it. And she wrote emails both for my daughter and for my son at the appropriate level. And so it's more just reassuring them. They had a problem with her R&R. She came back for 2 weeks, and I thought it was great. It was a wonderful break, and I loved it. But at the end, neither child wanted Mom to go away again. My daughter sat on the bed just sobbing and pleading, "Not Mom, don't go back." And it's like, well, you got to. And I think given that, I don't think she would have taken R&R if she knew how hard it would have been on my daughter.
I can't imagine. I mean, I did my R&R. We went to Hawaii, and that was close enough to home for me. I couldn't imagine if I'd come back to the States. I don't know how I would have ever left again.
You probably wouldn't.
Well, I mean, I tried to figure out how to get onto an airplane, to get to the mainland anyway. And the first 2-3 days are really great, but then you've got that build-up preparation again to leaving. And it was about right in the middle of my tour, so it was, we did 6 months. We only have 6 more months to go, and we'll be fine. But boy, coming home, it just seems so difficult to me for everybody involved.
We had a lot of guys from Thailand that went home on their R&Rs, but they didn't have that much time. I mean, they only had a week, and by the time they got home,
I was going to say it takes a week to get there.
Yeah, they spent 2 or 3 days and turn around and come right back. And I didn't even try to do that. I didn't even bother going home. But it was very hard for me when I left because I had a 9-month-old daughter, and when I came home, she didn't know Daddy.
Right.
Daddy there was the picture on the TV. The first night home, my wife told the girls, say goodnight to Daddy. My oldest one came over to me and gave me a hug and a kiss. My youngest one went over to the TV and gave the picture a kiss. And that was hard. So,
sure.
I'm sure that you had the same type of thing, didn't you, Ken?
Similar.
Yeah.
Similar. Where, but both my children were old enough that they knew Mom, and they had actually been able to talk to her. So it's a little bit different. If you take a 9-month-old who really hasn't registered anything other than the parent who's right in the immediate vicinity, and you remove the other parent, it must be terrible. I really can't quite imagine that. But in trying to keep Mom alive, there were things like my mom, or the children's Chris, knits. So she would knit things and send them back. Mm-hmm. And I had the children make toys and little plaques to decorate her office. So we took red, white, and blue clay and made it on a green background and did a flag and a sun and a star and sent. So I was always trying to keep that connection there, and it takes work. It takes work to do that.
Megan, while your husband's gone this time, you're working full time?
Mm-hmm. I work 45 hours a week as a graphic designer.
Okay, so you're going to keep busy doing that. What about outside of the office? Do you have some activities planned? Weekend groups with waiting wives or something?
Well, I have a couple of other military wives out here, actually whose husbands are going to be deployed at the same time. So that'll help a lot. We already have plans to get together every other weekend or something like that, just so that we can talk and discuss because, again, it's always better to be around those people who understand what you're going through and kind of share thoughts and frustrations and things like that. It just helps get it out there. And I'm also looking into things to do after work because then I would still have all evening by myself every day, and right. I would like to fill that up with something. I'm into art, so possibly some painting classes that I'm looking into. There's things to do on base through the rec center. Just stuff that'll take up time.
Well, you've got an advantage over Ken because you've got a large support group there for you. The military is going to support you. Ken, you were pretty much alone in that area, weren't you?
Essentially, there's very little in the Ann Arbor area. That I enlisted the help of a lot of people in our community, our church, the school, both the teachers of the kids knew what was going on. My wife had actually gone in for career day. My wife goes in either uniform or the dress uniform. So they had an idea. And I spoke with the school counselors, and that helped out a great deal.
I think preparing those people because children act out things, and if we don't understand what they are, it becomes much more difficult. I think you probably, Megan, does have a little advantage in being down in Virginia. Are you around Norfolk?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're surrounded by military, and I was reading a book the other day that talked about being on base versus being off base as far as spouses were concerned, and the support groups that are set up on military installations versus being in Ann Arbor, which is not known as a big military town, other than as a defense contractor. I guess we can say we do that fairly quite a bit around here. But I guess my question would be, Ken, to you is, how did you prepare when Christine was getting ready to come home? How did your kids start reacting then toward that February of 2004, 5?
It was exciting. The kids it was more, so when's she going to be home? That type of a question. And we had several, I went and took a class. They had several meetings to help it's a redeployment class for the spouses. And they talk about, there seems to be a difference between men and women. It's hard to generalize this, but typically the woman will want to communicate more, and I find that the soldiers coming back really can't communicate. They don't know how to put into words the feelings, the emotions that they have that they've gone through, and it's hard for them to come back. And all of a sudden, the soldier's back in the home, and the spouse wants to talk and wants to communicate and wants to know what's going on.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I want to talk a little bit about that when we come back after our next break. We're talking about waiting spouses, what they have to go through when their spouses are deployed and when they come home. You're listening to Veterans Radio. And we're back on Veterans Radio, and we're talking with Ken Cook, whose wife Christine was deployed to Kuwait back in 2004, and we're talking to Meghan Schultz, whose husband has been deployed and is getting ready to go out again on his ship in a couple of months. And we're talking about what you have to go through preparing your children for your wife to come home, and yourself, because now we've got a different set of dynamics that are setting themselves up, because you want to talk to her because you haven't seen her in a year, and or especially guys, it seems like we clam up.
Yes, well, she couldn't put all of her feelings into words. She could communicate, but I also wasn't quite prepared to talk about it that much either. There are a lot of things that I had been keeping under wraps, and a lot of emotions. You can't think about the real critical issues, like what if she didn't come home. I found if I even started to go towards that, it would almost be debilitating. So I had to stop and back up from that. But at the end, we took several post-redeployment classes where the Guard offers a spouse weekend where they have a facilitated discussion and talking about how to communicate and when it's appropriate to bring things up, and it's just for the spouses. No children, so you have to find some place for your children to go, and you end up spending 2 days together discussing and talking and writing, both separately, where they'll take the soldiers and the spouses into 2 separate groups, and then together. And then there's also one-on-one time that they provided. So that was a very good class that they provided, and that's available to all Guardsmen.
Ken,
yes.
How many single fathers were in your unit? Were there very many?
2.
Meghan, how many single fathers were in your group?
Oh, just a handful.
Yeah. Not
very many at all.
Yeah, I'm definitely in a minority here.
And Meghan, your husband is on a carrier?
No, he's actually on a destroyer.
On a destroyer. So how many men are on that destroyer then?
There's about 350 men on there. Okay. It's a smaller ship.
Right. Okay.
But still, that's it's easy to think that it's only wives that are left back.
Right.
And it's easy to forget about the men who have the same type of issues. And then, given that I am in such a minority, it was hard for me to find contact with good women to be around, and just to talk to women. At my work, I'm focused on what I'm doing, and I get home and I have to take care of the kids, and then afterwards it's hard to find anybody to talk to that can be where it's an adult conversation, and it's not about work or the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And it was nice through church and through there was a knitting group, actually, that my wife belonged to, and there's 25 women in there, and I would go and attend some of their sessions, and I would be around 25 women who were all very nice, knew my wife. They knew what we were going through and would be interested in what was happening and want to talk to me. It was nice every now and then to be able to put myself in that situation where I would have the contact with a more feminine spirit and be able to draw some of that in, and that helped. That helped actually quite a bit. Was finding other activities that would help supplement and the fact that my wife was gone and really out of contact. I could email her, but it's not really the same.
I think the waiting spouses have the harder role. When we go off, we got our job all day, and we're probably working extended hours, and you're working 6 or 7 days a week. So you don't really, you miss the family, but it's not as pronounced, I guess you could say. And for a male waiting spouse with children, it's got to be much more complex, because suddenly you got to run the household as well.
Well, one thing to consider is also for the female soldier. The female soldier has to worry about, okay, what do I do with the kids? Because that's typically
that's a role.
My wife and I share that, but it's obviously something that she's even more focused on. I know that when I'm at work, I don't have to worry about the kids.
Right.
And she knows when I'm taking, and she knows through history that we've had that when I've got the kids, she doesn't have to worry about them. And her job in the Army, she doesn't right now, even when she goes for the weekend, just her drills and then 2-week AT, she knows she doesn't have to worry about the kids, that I'll take care of it. So when she's off, she doesn't have to worry about where we are or what we're doing or whether the kids are going to be taken care of. Whereas the other way around, it's like, well, I have no idea.
Right.
Does she have a place to sleep tonight? Is she going to be in a tent? Is she going to be out on the ground? What? You just don't know. And it's the not knowing that is the agonizing part. And the same for the children.
Sure.
And that's why it was so important to reassure them that, no, I'm still here. I'm not going away. I'm right. I know you don't want to go to sleep right now, but, I'm just across the hall. There are a couple times when my son wanted to come in and crawl into bed and say, we just need you here. And that didn't happen often, but sometimes. And the fact that if they called, that I would come and take care of them in the middle of the night. And it's in the middle of the night when the fears come up the most.
Sure.
Just don't
absolutely.
know.
I mean, that comes up to you. It comes up to the kids. It comes up to the wife, whoever's, it's when you wake up in the dark and you don't know what's happening that probably gets you the most. Ken, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about some things in addition to power of attorney that you needed to prepare for.
Well, the power of attorney is really the most important thing.
The power of attorney basically does what?
You'd be surprised how often you have to use it, actually.
Right, because you just don't know. If there's anything that you have to do on behalf of your spouse, if you don't have the power of attorney, you're powerless. You really cannot. You can't sign anything. You can't do bills. You can't change terms on anything. So you have to have that in line. And plus, the wills are always a good thing to do. Children complicate that a little bit more, but only a little bit. And even just the regular boilerplate wills will handle all the main things. If something happens to your spouse, heaven forbid, then you'll at least be able to keep going legally. But things like jobs, cars, the bills, pay issues, you really have to have that lined up.
Yeah, and you have to make sure you have access to all of their information. I know we do a lot of online banking. You have to have access to all that. You need to know how to get into their pay on the internet, all that kind of stuff, because the soldier or sailor, whomever, usually won't be able to access that. It's not nearly as easy for them to access it as it is for us to back home.
Correct. And one resource that we had on the Army side was a website called army1.com. And that had a lot of resources. There's also several numbers for guardsmen who are deployed and their families that they are available, certainly on the internet. And if the spouse makes the effort to contact the unit, I think they'll find it much more supportive, certainly now, than it has been in the past.
There's a couple of websites that I found last night. One was there's a new magazine, I guess, coming out called Military Spouses, and it's got a website called militaryspouses.com. There's another radio program I believe it's called Military Wives Talk, and it's sort of like a blog or a discussion room, and a woman, I believe she's in North Carolina somewhere. And so there seems like it'd be a really strong support system out there that continues to grow, especially around the military bases. Megan, do you live on the base?
No, we don't. We live off base.
Okay. Well,
but within a couple miles of.
Right. So it's all there available to you again, and a lot of the especially enlisted personnel who live on the base have set up these support groups too, and they have the ombudsmans, and they have usually a lot of the units have an officer that is assigned to the unit but has not been deployed, that kind of acts as an ombudsman also, that you can go to for that help.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that all of you out there, the military spouses that are waiting, that you utilize all these programs that are available to you.
There are a lot of them, and really, it's hard to remember that you can reach out and ask for help. And it's important to do that.
There's so many people who are willing to help.
I think so. We've got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that either one of you would like to say to kind of wrap the program up today? Something that we left out?
Not really. Just thank you for all of the troops and sailors who are listening, who are either going to be deployed or possibly deployed right now, and for all the families back home, just continue to keep trying to get through it.
Well, we want to thank you very much, Meghan, for being on Veterans Radio, and continue listening and pass the word.
Will do.
Thank you very much, and good luck with the deployment coming up. I'm glad you're close enough to the base that you can get the support that you need, and that you'll be busy outside the. You're not just focused on your husband being deployed. You have a lot of other activities too. That helps out a great deal.
Oh yeah, we'll be all right. It'll be fine.
Good.
Well, good. Well, our prayers are with you both.
Thank you.
Meghan, keep in touch and let us know how you make out during his deployment, huh?
Will do. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Ken, now that Christine is a full bird colonel, officially, congratulations to you, Christine, out there, if you're listening.
Thank you.
Is there any possibility of her being deployed again?
There is always a possibility. She is currently in the 46th MP Command. She's moved into a new position with the promotion, and it was just 3 weeks ago today that the promotion ceremony happened, and the kids actually were able to put the rank on her uniform, and I did the hat, and so it was exciting. It was a lot, very enjoyable, and
so now she joins the rest of the family of colonels.
Indeed. My mother-in-law should be given a great deal of credit. She has both her son and her daughter are full colonels. She was married to a full colonel who retired out, regular Army, and it was, I really don't know how she did it, but she did a great job and raised two really good kids. After all, I married one of them, and so I'm a little bit biased. But and in terms of the troops coming back, I'm very glad to hear about the redeployment. We had the annual training for the Michigan National Guard a week ago, ended a week ago, and they were talking about the redeployments. And I'm very glad that those units have come home to Michigan.
Right. Well, Ken, I want to thank you very much for being on Veterans Radio, and hopefully we can talk to you again in the future sometime.
Thank you.
We want to thank all of our sponsors on Veterans Radio. I'm not going to go through the list because we're running up against the clock right now. And we also want to make sure that you all come in next week. We're going to be talking with dog handlers. We're going to be talking about guard dogs and so forth. And Ken, wanted to go out with a little story.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Tragedy struck the Veterans Radio family this past week. Bob Gould's son died unexpectedly on Wednesday. He was 38. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Bob and his family.